and the answers is coming in. So seems to be working. And you're all lucky winners because they are all right answers. So no points to anyone, but now with the last 11 questions, this is where you will score your points. Let's take the next question then. Yeah. And we had 15 that was right on this question. Do you have any comment to this question, Reza? Now you should see the questions. Is it working better now? Perfect. And next question. And people say they are not hearing you, so I will just go in.
The YouTube live view, I would see it from
now. And
okay.
Almost anyone answered correctly for the next.
Okay, that's good. Yep, star schema is the model that you have fact to dimension relationship, not dimension to dimension or fact to fact. Fact to fact might happen in rare exceptions, but the main type of relationship is fact to dimension.
And let us see, we have a new leader.
I see many people are quite familiar with Kahoot and they are just answering so fast. Nice.
Oh.
Okay.
This was a trick question, maybe.
Yeah, this was a little bit tricky question because date and timetable. Think about combining these two tables. Timetable is a table that has one record usually per minute, sometimes per seconds, depends on how you want to build your timetable, sometimes per hour, right? This is a big table itself, right? Date table is another table that is not that big, but still a table considering the size of it. For, let's say, 20 years, you might have 7,000 rows, 20 years of the date table. And if you combine it with a timetable, then you might easily end up with over 5 million rows in your dimension. It's not ideal. You need to separate. Date table is a different table, timetable is a different table. They connect to the fact table. But customer and geography of customer, they can easily merge with each other because you are storing the geography of the customer as columns of the customer table. It's not making your customer table bigger.
That makes sense. Let's see, and we have a new leader here, and we have a couple of people answered correctly on all the questions so far.
Now, this is a question that I haven't talked about in this session. Let's see who knows the answer. This is coming from the back data warehouse experience, if you have had that before. Okay, nice. I see. Still, it was a little bit tricky. So let me explain these types of dimensions. So the first type of dimension, inferred dimension, is not actually a dimension. Inferred dimension is a record in a dimension. A record in a dimension that is not fully detailed yet. I have part of the information for that record, but not all of that. The remaining part of it is coming. It is working for scenarios that I have customer key, but I don't have customer name yet because it haven't loaded into my system. Junk dimension is a set of small dimensions that they are usually so small that I combine them into one dimension. I call it junk dimension. Role-playing dimension is a type of dimension that might play different roles. Date is a good example of that. It can be order date, ship date, due date, anything like that, and you create copies of that dimension connected to the fact table. All of those three are part of dimensions. They connect to a fact table. But degenerate dimension is a dimension that does not exist as a separate table itself. This is a column in your fact table, because the granularity of the degenerate dimension is same granularity of your fact table. Usually this is used for sales order ID, something like that, that is exactly at the same granularity of your fact table. Because it is the same granularity, why creating a separate table? So you combine it, you use it inside your fact table as a call.
Yeah, thank you for the explanation. Let's see.
Welcome.
And Renoy is
rocking it.
And then we have Rene in second place. Most had this.
Okay, correct. Mostly answered correct. Yep, that's good. Dimension tables, you should flatten them. Another name for that is denormalize them, because you are reducing extra dimensions. You are reducing the need for a snowflake. Remember that example of product category, product subcategory, product? You denormalize, you combine them all into one table called product table. You do not denormalize fact table, because then you end up with a super huge table, your sales table combined with customer table, with product table. This ends up with a big, fat, and very large fact table in terms of rows. So denormalized dimension tables, which is what most of people answered correctly.
Let's see who's in the lead now. Renoy is on a winning streak.
Still Renoy.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. Now up to DAX questions. And this is also a little bit tricky question. Okay, yeah. I mentioned it is a little bit tricky question. Okay, now what is the output difference here? I mean, look at all of these 4 functions. These are 4 DAX functions. 3 of these functions are table functions. They return a table as a result. All, dates between, all except. Their table result might be different. For example, dates between returns a table of dates. All returns everything from the original table. All except returns everything except the fields that we said not pass into. But date diff returns a value. Date diff is a scalar function. All other functions are tabular functions. There are, of course, some other differences, but their output difference, one of the main differences, is this.
Thank you. Let's see. Wow, Renoy was the only
one.
Okay,
yeah, Renoy is hot on the top.
7
Good.
Correct.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I see many people are familiar with the 3tas function, which is good. The other functions, these are all functions that you can use for kind of a relationship, but the other functions, related, use relationship, and cross filter, they need to have an existing relationship. So that is what I mean by previous setup between two tables. You need to previously set up a relationship between the two tables to use either the related function, the use relationship function, or the cross filter functions. But treat as is the function that without having the relationship, you can virtually create that relationship.
And Jan Ove
Okay.
Kastel making a comeback.
Okay, yeah, we see someone coming up.
9th
Errol.
question, so still 4 to go. Oh. I'm really missing this music. Do 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 do.
Okay, yeah, perfect. These are all functions that work with filtering, but they are not all filtering the data. For example, is filtered is checking is the data is filtered by a specific field. Has one filter is also checking something like that. Is checking that do you have only one filter on this specific field, and filters return a list of values filtered there. The only function that actually filters the data is filter itself.
Yeah. And Rena was answering correctly again. Has a good lead now. We have 3 questions left. Let's see if someone can beat Renai.
Okay. Which function can help creating a virtual table? Actually, all of these functions can help creating a virtual table. Add columns means adding a column to an existing table. Select columns, selecting columns from an existing table. Summarize, group the existing table based on some fields. All of these are creating tables as a result. These are all tabular functions, and most of them are functions that you use in creating a virtual table, which I can see some answers, but the add columns, many people answered that, which was a little bit, all other columns are also, other functions are also useful for that. Okay, let's see what's the next.
And I think...
Okay, Reno is going all the way up.
Let's have the last 2 questions here.
Another tricky question.
Oh, most.
Okay, yeah, that's good. So it means it wasn't that much tricky. So the difference of the last date with the other three functions here is that those functions are functions that gives you a specific point of the time back from whatever you have. Same period last year goes 1 year back in the same period. Dates in period will give you a period of dates from the period that you choose based on the how much you want to go back or forward. Parallel period, again, same thing. Last date, however, is a function that give you usually the current context of your filter. This is a function that we usually use for that, and it has one value as a result, of course, compared to others, which has a table as well.
And let us see. Wow.
Okay.
Last question.
Hard to beat.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I think we can declare winner already. but I can see in the chat that Christopher and Eric also have a competition who can get the most right. So, and other people can have that too. Maybe we should reveal the top 10 afterwards.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that was another tricky question over here. So, which function is different for working with the filter context? Of course, calculate is a very specific function. It helps us a lot to play with the filter context, but you can do most of those things with the SumX as well,
Yeah.
right? You can do most of those things with average X. The difference between those three functions and sum is that those three functions will give you the ability to filter part of data. You can add a filter in addition to the context that you have. So different for working with the filter context. It gives you ability to change your filter context. For example, you can use all in SumX, in calculate in average X. You can use filter functions in there. But sum is just sum of a value, right? Sum doesn't really give you any ability to change the filter context or do something with that. Sum just give you the value result of whatever is filtered in your report. And that makes it different.
Yeah. And let's have the podium. Number 3, Matthias Norskov.
Matthias, congratulations.
Number 2, Dorte Berntsen. And
Nice, congratulations.
Let's see. The winner is Vinay. And
Nice.
runner-ups is Nikki and Evil. And Vinay, can you go into the chat? And if you are able to that, so we can see what is your name.
Yep, congratulations, all the winners and everyone who participated. You're all winners, of course.
Yeah, and we have Vinay Anthony. Congrats for winning here. We will reach out to you regarding the voucher for the academy, online academy, Radacat online.